Hey everybody, so I am doing a redo on this just because I'm not sure if I was in the right state of mind or not. This is my second attempt at recording this video. Please do all the things, like, comment, subscribe. I'm coming from a PTSD conversion therapy survivor, which I believe what I've experienced was a lot of grooming. And from what I listened to yesterday, the Epstein files, or the victim, had experienced a lot of grooming as well, and there's a lot of parallels. I'm going to try to talk about it the best I can. Like I said, like and subscribe, help boost the algorithm, help support me as a conversion therapy survivor as well. I think there's a lot of similarities, but yeah, I just wanted to let you know what's happening. So without further ado, let's watch it together.
Every week, it seems, there are more disturbing revelations about the Jeffrey Epstein case. Victims, collaborators, all kinds of evidence, pictures, and documents that all get into graphic detail about what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. Just recently, in the last few days of this recording, an article came out in the New York Times Sunday magazine talking about the very early stages of Jeffrey Epstein's cons and the way he was able to amass a fortune, which enabled him to carry out this human trafficking scheme. And we're hearing more from the victims, the survivors, including Juliet Bryant, who met Epstein in South Africa when she was just 20 years old. And she's got a harrowing story to tell, not only about the things she saw him do, but the experiences, including things that were never reported before, medical crimes, things that will shock you. And we're lucky to have Juliet Bryant take a seat with me now, all the way from South Africa. Juliet, thank you so much for having a seat with me. How are you?
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm doing well considering the circumstances.
Yes.
Easy, everything that I've been through, as well as many of the other victims. And that's why I'm here speaking out for victims both alive and dead.
You know, Juliet, and we're going to get into all of this here, but it begs the question, in some ways it would be easier for you not to talk about this, to bury it, to move on with your life. Why is it so important to you to continue to speak out about this, to share the details of what you survived, what you endured?
Okay, if I was to answer this question, I would answer it so nobody could go through what I went through. I think these people do the most heinous shit to others, and it's an emergency, and these people need to be stopped. That's what I would say.
Endured because of Jeffrey Epstein.
Excellent question. Thank you, Chris. It would be easier for me to just live my life and ignore it all, but I cannot ignore it all, not when people have been murdered. I can't sit there and be happy when people have been hurt and killed. Also, those bastards hurt me so badly that I'll never be okay again after what they did to me. I'm getting better every day, but this is why I speak out against them. For people that they've hurt. They hurt me, but they've hurt others worse, and that's why I'm here speaking out.
You know, Juliet, let's go back to the beginning. How did you first meet Jeffrey Epstein? Under what circumstances? How did that all come together? It was in South Africa, correct?
Yeah. Well, what happened, Chris, is I was studying psychology at the University of Cape Town, and then I started doing modeling on the side because, my family didn't have a lot of money, and it was difficult for me getting to university. I didn't have petrol money, so I had to do like some sort of job, obviously, like most people do. So I was doing modeling, and because I got scouted for modeling. I actually got scouted, first of all, when I was 14 by Elite Model Management. My mother would not let me travel. So these bastards, they go for girls when they're even younger. But what happened is when I was 20, I was doing modeling, and basically I went out with a friend of mine to a restaurant, like bar, where they had like free drinks for models, because, young girls will always go with these like free drinks and free food or whatever, when you're poor. And then what happened is when I was at that place, a girl approached me and she told me that she worked, well, she didn't say she worked with him. She said that her friend Jeffrey Epstein, who's like the King of America, was here with his best friend Bill Clinton, and he worked with Leslie Wexner, the owner of Victoria's Secret, and they could really help with my modeling career. She also said that Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker were here with him. So, of course, it sounded like, I almost didn't believe it because I'm coming from Africa, I just turned 20 and I'd never met any celebrities in my life. So I was like obviously very interested to meet them because it sounded like my dreams were all coming true.
What was it like, Juliet, when you first met Epstein himself? What were the circumstances? What was the environment? What was the vibe?
Well, they were all sitting around a table having dinner, and there were like some South African government officials sitting with them. And they all stood up during dinner and stood up to shake my hand. So, I mean, for me, I was like more interested in seeing like Bill Clinton and Kevin Spacey. I didn't know who this man Jeffrey Epstein was. It just sounded like he worked with them and he helped with modeling. So but I was more like starstruck meeting Clinton and Spacey.
It was Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, Bill Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein, and that's a star-studded table for somebody to walk into. You must have been overwhelmed by this.
I was so overwhelmed. I was completely starstruck because, like I said, I've never seen a celebrity in my life, and it just seemed like so legitimate, that these people were all together. And the girl told me that they were scouting models, and it just seemed like the most legitimate opportunity of my life. And I still wonder how I was dumb enough to get on the airplane and go off there. But the thing is, I've realized
Because
these guys are.
First of all, you're not dumb. Second of all, you were young and vulnerable. I went through my conversion therapy experience when I was 25, but I was vulnerable and I didn't have access to the internet, and the only things that I saw was on either VHS or DVD. But I was late to the game. And if I had more education of what I knew then to what I know now, I would be in a lot better place. And I think she would too. And I think that's what she's experiencing. It's just really sad.
Con men. They're the
Right.
greatest con men of all. They'll be able to catch someone who's 40, someone who's 70. So, a 20-year-old's an easy fish to catch, right?
Exactly. And while you were of the age of consent, the grooming process that you were exposed to is the very same grooming process that they used on thousands of women, some of whom were underaged. What was your first dealing with Jeffrey Epstein? You have this dinner, you see all these politicians and comedians and stars, and you get brought into this. What was your first dealing specifically with Epstein himself?
Well, you see, when I was taken there, I didn't even sit with him at the table. Like, they just stood up and shook my hand. And then we stayed there for like 5-10 minutes and then we left. So then what happened is the girl who approached me and scouted me for him or recruited me, this girl phoned me after that and she said that, Epstein really liked me and wanted to see my modeling portfolio. He thought I would be great for Victoria's Secret. So the next day I was invited to a modeling casting at the hotel where they were staying, in the Cape Grace Hotel. So, but what Naja said is that they're actually doing a speech at the Western Cape Peninsula University, and would I like to come and watch the speech first before the casting? So of course I said, of course, I wanted to go. So I went to the hotel. I probably arrived there at like 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning, and they had these like mini buses outside, and the one bus, Epstein and Clinton and Kevin Spacey, they all got in. And then I was told to get in the bus behind. And then the whole highway was closed off in Cape Town. I've never seen anything like it. Like every ramp where you came to, there would be like police waiting, like on bikes and stuff. Like everything was like so shut down. I've never seen anything like that in my life. And then he gave a speech at the lower income university. And while he was doing it, Kevin Spacey had a handheld device and he went like this and filmed everyone in the hall because he was sitting in front of me. You see, I was sitting behind him, and it wasn't like the kind of place you'd imagine the ex-president of America to do a speech. It was a very basic lower-income university, but they were filming all the students in the hall.
Oh. And so after you listened to this speech, Did you have another meeting with Epstein? Was it this woman who was a go-between, or how did that all come together?
Well, what happened after this is that we went back to the Cape Grace where they were staying in the minibuses. And then I went to my car. I had a City Golf, like a very basic small car. I went to get my modeling portfolio out of my car so I could go in for the casting. So then I went back into the hotel and they'd already gone in. Like I was on my own. I went to get my, after we come back from the speech. And then I walked up, and then what happened is there were three girls sitting along a long table. They were all posing as modeling agents. They pretended that they worked for Karen Modeling Agency. And they went through my modeling book. And then they said, and while they were doing the casting, Bill Clinton walked through. Like, say I'm sitting here, he walked through behind me and he's like, "Hi, everyone." And then he went into an adjoining suite. So it looked like they were sharing the executive suite, the president's suite of the hotel.
No way.
What happened then is after these girls looked at my modeling book, they said, "Right, you can go through and see Epstein now." So I went through and I sat opposite Epstein and he looked through my modeling book and he said, "Right, I think you'd be perfect for Victoria's Secret." And then, what happened is after I left there, his office started phoning and arranging me my visa and to get me there. They had me there within 3 weeks, basically.
And was it your impression that Jeffrey Epstein was actually representing Victoria's Secret in terms of somebody who was finding models and recruiting models?
Yes. He made it very clear that he worked with Leslie Wexner and that he was looking for models for Victoria's Secret for Leslie Wexner.
When you finished that meeting, Juliet, was it your impression that, hey, I've got a real shot here to be a model for Victoria's Secret? This is the big breakthrough that I've been trying to get as a young model.
So heartbreaking.
Yeah. It's horrible. Yeah, I really believed it all. I was stupid.
No.
But then again, maybe I wasn't stupid. Like a lot of people say they would have been conned by people like that.
Well, you certainly are far from the only one.
Like, you're not stupid. You were young and vulnerable. And even me vocalizing that myself with my experiences, it hurts to say that, but that's the only way that I would be able to keep sane in the situation that I was in.
And who's fallen for this. I mean, obviously, you see somebody who's with the president, a former president of the United States, who's with, high-level celebrities, and why would you not believe it if a guy says that he's representing, Leslie Wexner of Limited Brands and the owner of Victoria's Secret? I mean, it would seem to me that you'd be all in your rights to say this is a legitimate deal.
And he was with Bill Clinton, it just seemed so legitimate. It seemed like the most legitimate opportunity of my whole life.
Well,
They tried to destroy me.
And what year would have this been, Juliet? Take your time.
It was in 2002.
2002.
I met them September 26, 2002.
When you came to the United States, where did you go? Did you go to New York?
Well, yeah. What happened is there was a man waiting for me with a name on a board. He was standing there with my name on a board, and it seemed so legitimate, this name on the book. It just, I just thought oh my God, I'm going to be a celebrity. It was just what the hell's going on? I was so excited. And then the driver was driving me, and I kept looking at all the billboards in New York, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be able to solve all my family's problems. And anyway, then they dropped me off at 301 East 66th Street, the modeling apartment. And I was in there for about 5 minutes, and then the phone rang, and it was Sarah Kellen, and she said, "Pack your things, we're going to the Caribbean." I obviously assumed it was for a modeling shoot or something, She said, "Pack a small bag." So I had to leave my big bag there and then bring a few small things to go to this island. And, I didn't have my phone with me. I didn't have any money because I asked them before, I told them I don't have any money. And they said, "No, don't worry. We will deduct the money from your modeling jobs." They said, "I don't need money." So I was basically just completely trapped and stuck. And then what happened is the driver came back and he drove me to Teterboro Airport. And then Epstein was sitting on the front of the plane, and he patted the chair like this next to him. And then I went and sat there. And then as soon as the airplane took off, he started touching me in between my legs forcibly. And then I realized these people are going to try to kill me. I immediately knew that if I didn't do what they want, they're going to kill me. I knew it. I felt it.
What made you think that they would kill you,
Wow.
Juliet, if you didn't do what they wanted?
You know, the way that her body sank and her body language is like she feels it viscerally. You can just tell. I really want to meet her.
Just the power?
It was just, I felt it strongly. It was just that I'd gone there for this modeling opportunity and suddenly I was being whisked away by these very rich, dangerous, powerful people. I mean, obviously at the time I didn't know how dangerous they were, but I just got a very strong feeling. I realized I'd been lied to basically, Chris, because the thing is I thought I was going to New York to stay in a modeling apartment and I was being sent for castings. And then suddenly when I got taken off on the airplane, he was touching me between my legs. I suddenly realized, oh my God, my family are never going to see me again. I felt so terrible. I don't even want to talk about it. Sorry.
We totally understand, Juliet.
They left my name on that fucking flight log. Sorry, I'm sorry. They left my name on that flight log, so if I gone missing, no one would have known what had happened to me.
Right.
So I
Juliet,
did whatever they wanted.
Juliet, this was Epstein's private plane, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. And you flew down to his island in the American Virgin Islands?
Yeah. So then I knew I had to do whatever they wanted, otherwise they would have killed me. It was pretty obvious,
Wow.
especially since my name was left off that flight log.
So they never even put you on that flight log?
No, my name was on the other flight logs. That one they left my name off. So if I'd gone missing, no one would have known what had happened to me.
And did this
Oh my God.
sexual assault continue throughout the flight?
I'm so sorry. Sometimes I get so stressed. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
You can't get arrested for smoking, right?
No. You're fine. Did this sexual assault by Epstein continue for the rest of the flight? And was there anybody else on the plane?
The girls who posed as modeling agents. And when he started touching me, they just laughed at me. They just laughed.
So they thought this was a big joke, that this was just a playtime for Epstein.
And they thought it was very funny.
This is really uncomfortable.
I'm so sorry to cry like this.
It's all right. We understand. And
Oh, I feel
the flight presumably was 3 to 4 hours, and you get down there after being assaulted, touched by Epstein. What happens when you actually get to the island, Juliet?
Well, they showed me the room I was meant to stay at. Where the
I mean, first of all, you had to be freaked out by the time you got there that, you thought you were getting involved in this legitimate modeling opportunity. Suddenly you're whisked away to go to the island. I'm sure you thought it was for a shoot at that time. And then you get, treated this way, assaulted by Epstein. And now you're on this island with no communication, no cell phone. Did you even have a passport at this point?
They had my passport. They had all my things like that. They said they had to have it for the flight. But the thing is, when we flew in,
So when you arrive in conversion therapy, they would put like cell phones, watches. It's either in your car or they would have it with them. You had to rely on the sun, and you basically just followed them everywhere, and they were your eyes, and they told you what to do. I'm just saying that there's a lot of similarities between my story and hers. We didn't go through the same thing, but
anywhere, no one ever checked anything on the plane. They never checked any passports. They never checked anything. None of the cargo, nothing was checked. We never went through any passport control.
to me, it's just so scary how prevalent it is. Holy sh! Have to catch my breath. Wow.
On those planes. Basically, you'd land and two cars would arrive and everything would be put on and you'd leave. Nothing was ever checked.
What happened when you got to the compound?
Well, first of all, we landed in, I don't know if it's St. Thomas or St. Bart's, wherever they land, St. Martin's, and then we took a helicopter from there. I was just like, firstly, I hadn't slept on this flight from South Africa, the 20-hour flight from South Africa. I was so excited thinking all my dreams are coming true. So I was absolutely exhausted. I'd also never even left South Africa. I'd never ever traveled without my mum. You know, I'd never been anywhere out of the country.
Yeah.
So I was just completely freaked out. And when we arrived there, they basically showed me the room I was going to be staying in, the chalet. And then that's when they started calling me to Epstein's room. After that, you know, what happened is then the next day, like another girl was boarded. And then the girl started giving him a blowjob in front of me during he was watching a movie, and I got so scared and I ran away. Basically, it was just very, very frightening and horrible. You know, it was a very, very frightening
Jesus
place to be trapped
Christ.
as a young girl.
And you were sexually assaulted by Epstein?
Yeah, many times. You know, I kept getting called to his room. There's a lot of weird stuff with all of that too. You know.
Well, I'm sorry you had to endure that. I mean,
Holy shit, hers is way more fucked up than mine.
it's just beyond belief that they could trick somebody at this level and do it so many times. How long, Juliet, were you on the island during that particular visit?
Well, the first time I was taken there, we were there for about like 4 or 5 days. Then we went to Palm Beach. Because the thing is, they never used to tell anyone before they were like leaving. You know, they never used to like tell us the night before they were going somewhere else. They'd like basically like half an hour before they'd be like, pack your things, we're going. And then we wouldn't know where we were going. Because they obviously didn't want anyone knowing where they were going. And then, yeah, we went to Palm Beach. And then after that, in Palm Beach, I was taken.
There is reports of the same camp that I went to, the advanced camp, where they blindfold you naked in the middle of the woods. And just that imagery is just so scary to me. What the fuck was this all for? And this is why I start feeling guilty about myself. Watching this stuff is very difficult, but it's necessary because there's more of this stuff that is happening. There's more of this stuff happening than what meets the eye. And there's a pattern, and it all comes from the right.
To his office, and he told me he worked with the CIA. He told me that he had my family's name on a list, and he told me that a girl accused him of rape, and he planted drugs in her apartment and sent her to prison. After that, I was sent to New York, and they made my hair blonde and my teeth white by Frederick Fakai, the hair salon man. And then I was sent back to South Africa, and then they brought me back again. Because by that point, I was so broken. People asked, why did I go back? I didn't want to disobey this man. It was quite clear that he was going to try kill anyone who disobeyed him.
Juliet, there came a point during all this where you were at his ranch in New Mexico. And this, to me, is one of the more harrowing, untold stories of the exploitation and abuse by Jeffrey Epstein. Explain to me what happened down there in terms of these experiments or medical crimes that he had committed against you.
Well, you know, it's so hard to actually explain all of it, but you know, I woke up in a laboratory there with like 6 people in hazmat suits and a female doctor working on me, and
this is at
What?
just so people know, this is at Epstein's ranch in New Mexico.
yeah, Epstein's ranch in New Mexico.
And why were you brought there? Why did they tell you were? What did they tell you in terms of why you were going there?
Nothing. I was never told anything.
Just we're going to the ranch in New Mexico and you're coming along.
And yeah, I mean, I can't really explain it all very clearly because I don't really know more of what they were doing, but I do know what happened to me.
Okay.
Why did you think you were going to New Mexico? What did you think was going to happen there when you flew there from South Africa?
I actually don't even know. I mean, the thing is, Epstein had such a hold on me and so many other people. It's almost like he was running a bit of a cult, you know, and he would find people and like sort of try to control them. And
Makes sense.
the thing is, like, no one disobeyed Epstein. Like, disobeying them would have been a very bad idea. Look at the Maxwells, and all those families. They're very, very dangerous. Being around Epstein it was like a mouse being around a snake, like a mouse with a puff adder or a cobra. That's how I felt.
And did you think at the time when you were in New Mexico that there was still a chance that you could...
It must feel so liberating for her to speak out.
Score a modeling job out of this.
I don't even know by that point. Like, I was such a mess by that point, to be honest. I suppose, I don't know what I thought by that point. I think the thing is that he'd taken such great advantage of me, and it was just the whole thing had like messed me up so badly. When I came back from there, I had terrible panic attacks. I was hospitalized like 10 times. I was put on tranquilizers. I was a real mess. It's like, that's a lot of people judge and say like, oh, why did you go back? The thing is, when you're kidnapped by someone like that, you don't come back feeling okay. These people are very powerful. They're very, very clever. They know what they're doing. They know how to fuck around with a young person. I was 20 years old. If they took me now, I'd be a little more able to deal with it, but not really. That's why they wouldn't take me now. They'd take someone who's 20.
Tell me what happened to you in New Mexico, this medical crime that was committed against you.
Well, I don't even know what they did. I woke up in a lab. There were people working on me. It wasn't like the usual sort of hospital area. It was just, there's something very, very weird that happened. And I don't know what it is. There's a lot of weird stuff that they try to do. I mean, if I knew more, I'd be dead, right? So I guess I'm figuring it out with you. I don't really know what they did because...
So you woke up in what was essentially some sort of a makeshift operating room at Epstein's ranch in New Mexico. You saw them committing some sort of medical crime, some sort of procedure upon you. And did you ever feel any sort of physical pain or trauma, or were you ever able to confirm exactly what they did? I know you've gotten trauma from the whole experience, but was it?
Crazy. I had severe trauma.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to fucking die every day.
Yeah.
They did something serious to me, and I know they did, because I've like abused myself many times in my life, but I've never felt as bad as I did when I came back from that place.
What do you think they did? Were you ever able to confirm it or figure out exactly what they did to you down there?
I can't confirm it exactly, but as we all know, there's a big cover-up going on here, and I think these criminals are capable of a lot more than any of us can comprehend. So, I mean, I wish I knew the truth, but if I did know more, I'd probably be dead. And like I said before, like they probably want me dead already. I can't go out. I can't even go to the beach. I've been followed. I've had my tires slashed. And no, I'm not crazy. I've been going out in Cape Town my whole life. As a young girl, I used to take the train. I used to take taxis. I had no problem going out as a young girl in Cape Town. But nowadays, I can't go out because my tires get slashed.
How were you finally able to get out of the Epstein grasp? How did you finally escape? What was the final thing that made you say, I'm done. I'm going to escape this. I'm out of here?
That's actually a very good question, because do you know what started to happen? People started to go after him. There was a Vanity Fair article where Maria Farmer and Annie Farmer were, after him. And then I think the thing is he couldn't actually be bringing girls from overseas anymore. It got too dangerous for him, because the time when he let me go was the time when he was about to get caught. Apparently he was never really put in prison. It's all a lie. But he had to be a bit more cautious with his deeds.
So you think people started to catch on with Epstein? He was facing allegations in the Miami Herald, for instance. He was facing criminal charges, albeit a sweetheart deal in that plea bargain, as we know. But you think he backed off of trying to bring you in anymore because it was an international situation and he was under a bit of a microscope at the time?
It's also not just that. He also said very clearly that women over the age of 22 are no longer attractive. He just said that girls were no longer useful after 22. So the thing is, he did try to get me to stay there. He offered me $4,000 a month to stay there and work with him, $2,000 for any girl I found for him. But I didn't go for any of that because, I just didn't want to be there. I wanted to be at home with my mum and my animals and my family.
Are you in touch with some of the other survivors today? Do you keep in touch?
I speak to Annie Farmer a lot. She's an amazing woman. Annie and Maria. Maria's also been through a lot. I speak to them. There are not many other survivors I'm in touch with. Yesterday I actually got in touch with Haley Robson. I saw you did an interview with Haley, right?
Sure, absolutely. And
Yeah.
my heart goes out to all of you, because I mean, it's just shocking that he was able to get away with this for so long. Did you ever along the way, Juliet, actually meet Les Wexner?
No,
Oh.
no, I didn't.
Does it shock you that a guy like Epstein, a college dropout, was able to con all these people along the way to a massive fortune that allowed him to conduct this sort of human trafficking on such a large scale? I mean, it's amazing to me and to a lot of other people that he was able to pull this off. And it raises questions about what he had on Les Wexner. Now, Wexner's denied any wrongdoing. He's not been charged with any crimes. But along the way, the recent reporting on this indicates that in spite of Wexner's advisors saying, stay away from Epstein, he's a bad guy, he stayed loyal to him and actually, continued to invest money and give Epstein money that allowed him to be a major player in these very wealthy circles. I mean, how does a guy get away with this like that?
Yeah, no, there are a lot of stories about all of that. What I have realized, Epstein never told me he was a maths teacher. He told me he used to be a cab driver. And he said he had his own fleet of cabs and stuff. And he told me he used to give girls free rides for blowjobs. So I don't understand how a cab driver is suddenly a maths teacher. And also, if you look at the articles about this thing of Epstein being a maths teacher, there's a photo of him with the board and he's written his name incorrectly. It's like Epstein without the E. So what kind of a maths teacher writes the name incorrectly? Also, if he was a maths teacher, surely some of his students would have come out and spoken by now, correct? Also, like, as far as being a pedophile, you would have expected some of the students to have had cases against him. Where are all the students? I would like to hear from one person who was in Jeffrey Epstein's maths class. Because these students will be about 40 now, or 50, or 60. They'll be alive. Where are these students that were in his maths class? That's what I want to know.
How do you think Epstein got away with this for so long? You got so many breaks along the way.
Yeah.
Was it power? Was it money? Was it blackmail? What do you think, based upon what you saw?
I think he's the front of a big business. There's a big business behind him, and I think there were other people protecting him. I don't believe that he was really a math teacher, like I was saying. Also the way he became, started working for Bear Stearns with, Ace Greenberg, all those names. It seems to me like with the School of Dalton, if you ask me, it seems like one of those, he got involved with the children, and I think one of the children did something bad, and then he blackmailed the parents. And I think that's how he got along. That, if you had to ask me, I don't know. I'm just guessing here.
One of his former supervisors at Bear Stearns said in a New York Times Magazine article that came out just recently that he had the opportunity to end Epstein's career and wishes he had at the time. They learned that Epstein had falsified his college record.
Yeah, and he said it was his greatest regret. Right.
Yeah, that he didn't stop it when he could have. And this was in the early mid '80s. Yeah, and there are more than one. There is more than one person who is saying this now. That they caught him. They figured out he was a con man back then. Obviously, nobody knew back then that he was capable of the mass evil human trafficking that ultimately took place. But there were a lot of warning signs along the way here. And the question begs, how does a guy like that end up amassing a fortune of $500 million? And in spite of getting caught at least once, and I've gone through some of the files, there was tons of evidence here. These women were trying to get their story out there, you and the others, when nobody would listen. And it's shocking to me that this was able to take place. And I guess it comes down to money, power, greed, and perhaps blackmail.
Yeah, I'd say definitely some blackmail along the way. These evil people work in very evil ways, and a lot of us don't really understand it.
Right.
But where there, like you said, where there's power, there's greed, there's corruption, and a lot of people after money. And I think at the end of the day, Epstein was working for them, really. You know,
Did you ever meet Ghislaine Maxwell?
many times.
And what was your relationship like with her when all this was going on?
I was just very nervous of her because I was actually told that she was Epstein's girlfriend. So it was like, it just made the whole situation even worse, where I'm like getting taken to this man's room and other girls are being taken there. And then he has suddenly the girlfriend. It was just too much for me to handle. But it was quite clear that she was a big part of the operation. They were working together. If anyone was in charge, I would have said it was her, not him, in fact, because she was far more educated. She was, more eloquent, like a very well educated woman. Epstein was a more sort of simple guy.
Recently, Ghislaine Maxwell was moved to a lower security camp-like federal prison where, by all accounts, she has privileges not generally rewarded to somebody who's been convicted of human trafficking. How does that sit with you when you see that kind of preferential treatment being given to somebody who who has been convicted of this level of human trafficking?
Well, I think if she was going to be given that level of comfort, she should name some names, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all about naming names and keeping quiet. But then again, I can understand why she hasn't been able to name names, because guess what? The media won't name names. This is why I've got my account on X, and I can't tell you how many times I've been blocked. That's why a lot of the other victims can't name names. They can't speak because they don't have any following on X. They don't, a lot of people, I used to have an e-commerce business, so I have a bit of knowledge of algorithms and things. A lot of these girls don't understand how to actually get their stories out there, and they're also very frightened. They live in America. If I was in America, I'd be a lot more scared. But basically, like, a lot of people can't really speak out. Like, even with Maxwell, how can she speak out if the news is going to block it all? How is she going to speak out if the news won't put it there? Even though her family used to own the media, right? So I'm sure she could make a plan. But anyway, if the news won't put it there, then how do you get it there? And that's why I also speak out, because, coming from a place like Africa, what about all the other people who get murdered and abused and raped? And they can't even speak out. If an Epstein victim can't speak out on the news, then how can anyone speak out on the fucking news? Sorry to swear.
There was a massive financial settlement from the Epstein estate to many of the victims. Does that make any of this better? Does that provide any sense of justice in your mind?
I'm very grateful that I was given a settlement, because it's also afforded me the time to step off the hamster wheel of life and do more research. I'm very grateful for that. But, for me, it's not about money. For me, it's about seeing these perpetrators put in jail. Stop it. Just to get them to stop hurting people.
Yeah.
Because I had a lawsuit against the Epstein estate, but I was very much told that I couldn't go ahead with my lawsuit. There was a whole lot of names on this document. But I was advised not to go ahead with the lawsuit. And I told them, I said, I don't care about the money. I want these people caught. But I was told that it would have been thrown out due to the statute of limitations. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's really true, and I should have gone ahead with it.
But you were a part of this settlement, and as you mentioned, that's helpful to you. But does it...
And I feel that about organizations too. Like, we could have done something about this, but because we didn't want to prioritize that, we just waste everybody's time. Meanwhile, it's decades later and she's hurting.
Does it represent justice, given everything that you were put through by this man?
No. It's helped me a lot, and I'm sure many other victims. But the thing is also, when girls are feeling in such a mess, when they've been through so much stress, how are they supposed to even handle money? It's not very easy, is it? And I think also that the public have become victims of this now also. So the money paid to the victims doesn't give me any happiness. It gives me happiness that the victims are sorted and looked after in a way. But what about the public? What about the rest of the people who've been lied to? They need to, we've all become victims of this. And they've lied and lied, and it's enough. You know, money can help a little, but it's not about money. It's about justice. It's about children not being hurt. That's what it's about.
What did Jeffrey Epstein
100%.
and his cronies take away from you, Juliet?
You know, they took my innocence, but they can never take my soul. They'll never take anything from me. They tried to mess up my life. They tried to hurt me like they hurt many other people. But what's really healed me is also the amazing people in the world who really care. I've had so many kind people helping and caring, and that's really brought me back to myself. And just thank you to everyone for that.
And why is it so important for you to continue to speak out about this? And on one hand, it seems like we know a lot about Jeffrey Epstein, or as much as there is to know, but every week it seems there are more disturbing revelations. Do you ever think we'll get to the bottom of this?
I think it's happening slowly but surely. Like I've said before, I think if the full truth came out, it would break a lot of people's brains because, you know, it's a lot more convoluted and frightening than what most people realize. This is not just simple sex trafficking, and sex trafficking is a disgusting crime, but it goes a lot deeper than that. These criminals have many branches to their organizations. And I just think that the more of us who speak out, the more that we create our own media, like, you know, that's why I've been grateful having X to speak out. I think the more people who speak out and share information, the better, because apparently the media do not want to interview victims of horrendous crimes. And I think the media should do their job properly and start interviewing the victims.
I agree.
You've kept a diary about all this, and it is the basis for a book that is due out soon called Blue Butterfly. Why was keeping a diary so important, and what do you hope this book achieves?
The thing is, I didn't actually I have my diary from that year, but I wasn't writing things down daily, but I did write a few things down. Like when I met Epstein, I'm not like one of those people who writes long journals in a diary, but the author has chosen to write it like that because of my diary with the blue butterfly on the front. I just hope that more and more truth comes out, you know, soon. And yeah, the book will be coming out soon. But again, there's a lot more information that needs to be shared other than just the book. You know, there's a lot more information. And yeah, I just hope that everyone does their own research. I think that's the best advice I can give anyone here is do your own research. You know, when you read something online, don't take it for fact. Go and fact check it. And not just once, fact check it 3 times, 5 times. Do proper research. And, you know, my friend who's written the book, she's done some proper research. And her book is very much about the scientific side of things. You know, there's also the spiritual side of things. But I just think the more and more people who do research and also just start realizing that we've been lied to through the media, you know, I think that's the way to make the world a better place, is to realize that we've been very much lied to.
Do you think there's a way that all these very wealthy, powerful, smart people were actually tricked by a college dropout, Jeffrey Epstein?
No, absolutely not. These guys are all criminals. Like when you get one criminal, like Sopranos, was Tony Soprano the only criminal? No, it's all of them. It's the band. They come together. They're greedy. They want the money. You can't just blame one person. There's always a group, and you need to look for the group. And that's what we need to look for here as Epstein's boss.
You know, there's been talk about him being
That's
an
how you
intelligence
fight
agent
this.
for Mossad and things like that. Do you believe any of that?
Well, Epstein told me he worked with the CIA, so very much I believe it because, you know, CIA and Mossad are very, they're connected. Like Robert Maxwell and Leslie Wexner apparently both worked for the Mossad CIA in the 80s. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on with, you know, that we're not made aware of with these bastards and their criminal organizations, like bringing in drugs, human trafficking. You know, there's a lot of money in drugs and human organs and babies, by the way, guys. You know, follow the money. And yeah, JP Morgan, there was $1 billion worth of human trafficking transactions between there and Epstein Morgan's accounts. I mean, between JP Morgan and Epstein's accounts, $1 billion worth of human trafficking transactions. I think that should be highlighted. And I think that people need to look into it because human trafficking transactions, $1 billion. Epstein, JP Morgan.
Do you ever think we'll get to the bottom of this? Do you ever think we'll know, Juliet, the exact truth the exact source of Epstein's power?
I think it's starting to come out more and more, but I think the problem is the more and more it comes out, the more and more they try to hurt humanity, like with COVID and things like that. So the problem is they don't want this being exposed. So I think it's trickling out. It's trickling, and you know when something starts trickling, eventually it plummets and falls. It'll all come out. It will.
And do you think Ghislaine Maxwell is the one who knows all, who could solve a lot of these mysteries, answer a lot of these questions? It would seem she is.
She'll know a lot for sure. She will definitely know a lot. But again, like I was saying, if the media won't interview me or other victims, well, are they going to necessarily interview Maxwell of what she has to say? You know, apparently Jeffrey Epstein was about to name names. That's why he got killed. You know, are they going to interview people who are going to name names? No, they're not going to.
Wow. Do you believe Jeffrey?
She might want to name them to get out of prison. You know, if I were her, I would name them and get out.
Do you think Jeffrey Epstein actually committed suicide?
I think no, definitely not suicide. It's either murder or he's alive somewhere. And recently I was feeling like he's still alive, but now I'm not sure anymore. I'm not sure. The thing is, it definitely wasn't suicide. Absolutely not. That man would never kill himself. He was a megalomaniac. Megalomaniacs don't commit suicide.
That's an interesting point. I mean, everything I've seen obviously indicates that it was a suicide. But, you know, again, I'm not the expert on this. And there are plenty of skeptics on the suicide story. I guess this is one of those things that creates this enduring mystery. Juliet, there's so much to this case, and we've taken a pretty good crack at it here. But is there anything else, for this conversation at least, that you want people to know about what happened to you and about the Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy?
Thanks so much, Chris. Well, I think you've done an amazing job of covering pretty much everything. And if you ever wanted to follow up, I'm always willing to come on. If any of the guests have questions, please send them to Chris. But I think most importantly, the thing is that more victims need to speak out here, because a lot of the victims are frightened to speak out. You know, a lot of them are not able to. A lot of people have had to sign agreements giving away their freedom of speech.
I had to try to sign an agreement. I don't even remember what I signed. They just kind of forced me to sign something, and I signed it. I wanted to do anything in my power to have a relationship with my family. And I did it for them, and I will never get respect for it. So that whole thing was traumatic. Good God.
But there's certain ways you can speak out, you know, and I just think the more people who speak out, the better. Because if we don't speak out, then who will? And it's not just about the victims, it's about the public as well. It's about everyone right now, because it's really hurt people's minds. It's hurt people's heads. It's been such a horrible lie, everything that's been going on. And I think the more people who speak out, the better. And the more pieces of the puzzle that come together, the better. And thank you, Chris, for helping to put the pieces of the puzzle.
Well, thank you, Juliet Bryant, for having a seat with me. I appreciate it. You take care of yourself over there in South Africa, and we will stay in touch, I promise, okay?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chris.
Juliet Bryant and the rest of the...
Great interview. Chris Hansen did a really good job. I'll link it in the comments. Please like and subscribe. I'm going to try to do more of these and try to get more of my authentic reactions. I don't know if my reaction was good enough, but the link of the original interview will be in the description box below. Thanks.